So, like, one of the biggest things that I think for me is I know you, we've spent time together, um, kind of interact that way, but I don't think I've ever really actually heard like how you came into addiction.
I mean, I'll start off by saying, like, as a kid, like, I never grew up saying that I wanted to be a drug addict or an alcoholic.
Right.
That definitely was not my life goal. And I got caught up, like most other people, it was the alcohol first and then the pot. And, I like that feeling,
Mm.
that release.
Yeah.
And eventually went on to harder drugs. And
Mm.
then for me, I always swore that I would never do dope. I would never, put a needle in my arm. And in 2009, my father got very sick with cancer.
Mm.
And I remember watching my friends take Roxy's and being like, ew, that's so disgusting. Like they
Mm.
were nodding out. They were all like falling asleep. And I just thought that was, to me, that at the time it was gross,
Mm.
not knowing that that's, where my life would head very soon after. And I actually remember the first time I took a blue, it was like a half,
Mm.
and I can't really say it was innocent, but I didn't know at the time that like I was taking synthetic heroin,
Mm.
and I honestly cannot say I was so caught up in addiction at that point that if somebody would have said that to me that I
Mm.
wouldn't have taken it, but I definitely didn't know what I was getting myself into, and then 2 days before my father passed away was the first time I ever sniffed a bag of dope. And
Mm.
for me, it was just like, a lot of my friends went doctor shopping and stuff like that. And
Right.
I was too lazy to do that. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? I would just buy pills off of people on the street. And, I stopped came into play.
Mm.
Pills became so expensive. And what's the next option? I'm
Yeah.
sick. I don't feel good. I'm going through withdrawal.
Mm-hmm.
And, then it's a bag of dope.
Mm.
And, the first time I ever shot up, I didn't do it myself.
Mm.
I had somebody do it for me. And
Yeah.
I learned real quick,
Mm.
and that's how my life went for a
Yeah.
long time after that.
Crazy.
I think it's crazy too because one of the things I find really upsetting. So like one of the things you said resonated with me very, very powerfully, and that statement of, well, I didn't wake up today and say, hey, I want to be an alcoholic. Hey, I want to be a drug addict. I don't. Nobody does that. Nobody says that, and people really don't realize there's a backstory and there are reasons why, I think even for me, being involved in recovery for the short period of time that I've been involved is that everybody's story is different, but they're all equally tragic. So I really resonate with what you're saying, and you too. I don't think I've ever heard in the entire time that I know you, like what happened with you.
For me, like I grew up like in a good home, a good family, but I always looked up to the wrong people, like my brother or his friends.
Mm.
And like I started like very young, like maybe 14, 15.
Mm.
And and then when I started with like ecstasy and stuff like that, then when I was like 17, I got into a really bad relationship where we were doctor shopping.
Mm.
We had so many scripts, it was ridiculous. And I didn't even know I was an addict because I always had them, you know what I'm saying?
Mm.
And eventually, when we broke up, I felt for the first time being sick,
Wow.
and for me, like, I started going to rehab after rehab after rehab. I was in a year-long program. I was in like 4 28-day programs. They would kick me out after like 14 days because my insurance didn't cover it,
It's another problem.
and I was just not ready to get clean. And then when I was in detox, one time someone was glorifying heroin, and that's when I moved to it. I left detox that day and I tried it for the first time, and I like never thought I would ever shoot a needle. The same thing, Like I
Exactly.
really, and I did it. Someone did it for me too, and eventually I learned how to do it myself. And eventually I got tired of it. Like I remember sitting in my room, and like I could not find anywhere to hit myself, and I was crying for 3 hours, and I just threw it. And right after that, I moved on to pills again. I went back to the pills, and then my sister-in-law passed away, and that's what woke me up this time. You know, I seen her in the hospital for 3 weeks. She was brain dead.
I remember.
Yeah, she blew up. Her tongue was sticking out of her mouth. She was clean for actually like 6-7 months, and she did one big, and that was it, you know. And she has a 2-year-old daughter. This epidemic's crazy, and for me, like I couldn't see her like that sober. So I started again, you know, with the pills, blacking out completely, you know, and after seeing that, I decided I wanted to change. You know, it took a little bit. I was on methadone maintenance for a while. You know, I was on that for 2 years actually, and finally I got off it. You know, I detoxed the right way, and I'm lucky enough that I'm not going to be on that for the rest of my life, and, you know, but that's what worked for me. Some people like are so against like Suboxone, methadone, all that kind of stuff. Like that saved my life, for real. You know, and you know.
Well, a couple of things as I'm listening to you and processing everything that like both of you were saying. So like one of the things that I latched on to while Lori was speaking was, well, I wasn't ready to get clean, and so like we always hear about like the bottom and what's the bottom and how did I get to the bottom. And so like I also see the same thing in your story that I've seen in a lot of stories is like, you know, you're slowly, you know, moving away from where you were, and then something happens, they relapse, they go back, and but there has to be a moment of clarity or an epiphany, or like we were talking about before, like the bottom. So I want to flip back to you for a minute. So when we talk about I was ready, when did that happen for you?
I was trying to get clean from when I was 19 years old, and I've been in, oh my goodness, 20 detoxes, 28-day programs. I've been on methadone. I've been arrested, you know, and for me, like this time, I'll bring it back. When I got arrested, I was living in like Bushwick, Bed-Stuy, Crown Heights, like really bad parts of Brooklyn, you know, and coming from the South Shore, Staten Island, obviously I stuck out there, you know, like, and I was not supposed to be there, but that's where my addiction took me. And I don't know, this time it wasn't even like, my world wasn't crashing down around me like it usually was. It was just like, I picked up the pills again because I was like trying to do the right thing, and then I started shooting up again. And like my mom had no clue, and my friend ratted me out, you know. And 3 months before that, a girlfriend of mine passed away, and that I guess was like the first like moment of clarity that I was like, all right, if I don't stop this soon, I am going to die. And then I guess, you know, when my friend ratted me out, my mom was like, all right, I can't. First off, she was in total shock because she could not believe that I was doing this all again under her nose, in her house, no less, you know?
Yeah.
And I tried to go into detox, and I wound up scheming my way out. I was going to go to an outpatient program, and, you know, I was going through withdrawal so bad that I went out and I relapsed. And then I went into detox for 2 days after like a 2-week run of like legit like trying to kill myself, you know. And I was in the detox, and the day that I actually got kicked out because my insurance ran out was like the 4-year anniversary of my father's death. And at that moment, I could have used that as an excuse, and I could have went and I could have got high. But you know what? I stuck it out. I stuck it out. And, you know, for me, a 12-step fellowship saved my life. I am a total miracle because I did not go through treatment this time. You know what I mean? But I don't know. Like, I just had enough. I had enough, you know? And I took suggestions from other people because me growing up the way that I was, like, I knew everything, you know, and I was very educated on addiction. But unless you put it into action and actually take the suggestions, you know, for me, I just kept repeating the same behavior over and over, and then inevitably I would pick up. But like, I look back now and I'm like, wow, that was 4 years ago. You know, next month that's 4 years ago. And I don't know. I guess I'm meant to be here for a reason because so many of my friends have passed away.
Yeah.
Like, I'm even like getting choked up even thinking about it.
Yeah, sure.
You know, I'm just so sick of it. I'm so sick of going to wakes. I'm so sick of looking my friends' parents in the face with that look, you know, like that just emotionless, numb look on their face. It's just, enough is enough already, you know?
Yeah, and I think, like, you know, what happens is, you know, we were talking earlier about this whole thing, like, people seem to just gravitate towards, like, the dark part of it, you know? Well, I lived in a trap house, or, you know, whatever it is, you know what I mean? Like, craziness. Like, that's what they want to hear, that's what they want to talk about. And, like, listening to both of you, right? So, you know, we've had these conversations before, but when I listen to both of you, I got to be honest with you, it's like really hard for me. Like, I have to swallow hard because of how I feel about you, how I feel about you. There's a face, there's a life, there's, you know, there's all of that. And I think one of the things that's happened in, like, this whole big mess, right, is that people forget that there are real people with real lives who have real families. And I get real upset when, like, see, like you were saying, well, I went to 20 detoxes, even you had a similar experience. And this is like one of the hardest things that you can do. So, I mean, I'm, like, definitely proud of both of you for coming through that and continuing to work on your recovery. But, like, there's so much negative backlash and stigma, like, oh, well, look at her, she, you know, 20 times, and why should we bother? Well, they're just, you know, junkies anyway, or, you know.
Even the programs do that.
Yeah, and that's so painful for me. Like, when I see, like, you know, social media is a blessing and a curse all at once. Like, it's great because you can get awareness out there, and it's horrible because of the keyboard warriors that, like, sit there and, you know, they can say what they'll never say it to your face, but they'll type it, or, you know, whatever. And, like, how do you guys feel, and how, like, what's your response when you see such, like, indifference, cruelty, or whatever, when you've come through hell and back and you're still working, you know, in this arena, still trying to help people, and then you hear things like that? Because then that's, even for me working in it, I get really mad.
I just feel like when somebody's like that, I think it's because they have, like, some sort of resentment towards somebody in their own family that did something to them.
That definitely makes
either
sense.
that, or they're just uneducated.
Yeah.
You know, because look at me, I'm not a bad person. You know, I'm not.
I know.
I mean, I'm not like the end all be all of everybody in the world, but, like, I know who I am today. And
Right, yeah.
I mean, I was never a bad person. I never robbed from my family. I know a lot of my friends have, but I was brought up with morals and to have respect for my elders. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, because of the disease, like, a lot of that got robbed from me, but not all of it.
Right, yeah.
You know? And I think that that's, like, part of the stigma. I hate the word junkie. It makes my stomach flip so bad because, you know what? Like, walk a mile in my shoes.
Right,
Look
yeah.
what I've been through. Because half the people that I know that sit there behind the keyboard could never go through what I went through and stand here 4 years later with their head held high and love who they are inside.
Right.
You know? And I feel like it's a blessing because I got to reinvent myself, you know?
How many people wish for that, just to be able to reinvent themselves?
And people have asked me, like, if you could go back and do it all over again, would you? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I've worked in the industry for over 2 years. I help people on a daily basis. And, like, I have a PhD in being a drug addict, and I understand. You know what I'm saying? So, it's the truth.
Laura, you feel the same, like Nicole?
Yeah, I feel like people are very uneducated about it, and I feel like people put us down and stuff, but I feel like we're stronger than any of them because they don't work on themselves on a daily basis. You know, I feel like we reinvent ourselves. Like we're better people, like not better, but you know what I mean? Like we really do a lot of work on ourselves. And I feel like we should bring more awareness to people that don't know about this because it's important. And Staten Island is really bad right now. And there are so many people. I guarantee you every family knows somebody or has somebody in their family that has this disease, you know? And I feel like we should bring it out more. Like we should teach them, you know?
You know, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that I've heard used, okay, common language, you know, 6 degrees of separation, right? So like, okay, so like I know you, and then I end up knowing somebody else who knows somebody else who knows somebody else who somebody else, and it's like everybody's connected. And I think that one of the most heartbreaking things for me was we did a Narcan training, right? So we had a Narcan training, had a whole bunch of people come out. I was thrilled, you know, that we had a big turnout. And then finding out months and months later that, you know, somebody who came lost a child. I had been in touch with her, never mentioned it, not once. I had no idea that she was going through that, her daughter was going through that, and I was like, you know, you feel like I could have done something, and, you know, that's hard not to carry that too, you know. But I definitely agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, and everything I've done in my life, I wouldn't do it over again. No, I would do it over again because the person I am today,
Because
like
of who you are
yeah,
today.
I'm very grateful, like you know who I became, and nothing really worked for me. You know, like all these impatience and everything. It just had to be like, it was one day, like I just thought in my head, like I can't do this no more, and like I came to Christopher's Reason to speak to Anne-Marie, and I spoke to her, and I thought I was just coming to like talk to her, and she was like, what do you want to do? Do you want to come to Christopher's Reason? And I was like, you know, maybe I should. And since then, like I love that place. Like I feel like it's my family. I go there on a daily basis, and I work on myself every day, and I go to a fellowship program, you know, and I'm changing. You know, it's a process, but I am changing, and
No,
I want to
definitely see
be.
that.
I want to be like that better person. I want to help other people in this disease.
Yeah.
You know, because I had someone who helped me.
Right.
You know, and I don't give up on anyone.
Right.
You know, I have a brother who's an addict. You know, and I don't give up on him. You know, I try, you know, to let him follow my footsteps. You know, I try to lead by example, and hopefully it will work one day.
Well, I think being alone, feeling alone is like huge, you know, and people isolate and they think, oh, it's only me and so on. And they need to know that there are people out there like yourselves, you know, that love them, care for them, etc. That they're, you know, there's a ton of help available. We just want to make people know and encourage them to say, you don't have to be ashamed, you know. I think that's one of the beautiful things when you come through this, right, is that you're not in a place to judge anybody, you know, because you know where you've been, what you've done, etc. And it just gives you that much more. It's not even sympathy, because there's a difference between sympathy and empathy, right? I think it's much more empathetic because you actually feel like what that person's struggle is, and you want to pull them out, you know. But again, willingness, huge.
Frustrating
Yeah.
sometimes when I see girls who were my age, you know, back then trying to get and do the right thing, you know, because you give yourself to them.
Yeah.
But you know what? When I got sober, there were women and men that came and they loved me and put me back together because I didn't have the ability to love or accept love because I felt like I was a piece of crap and that I didn't deserve it and that, you know, I was a horrible human being. And in all reality, that's not the truth. I was just a very, very sick young woman who had a lot of demons in her past.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, I just sit here and I can't even believe who I am today. I get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Because I definitely have a life that I never could have imagined. And it's all because I took advice and, let other people tell me what to do. Because my best thinking gets me in rehab or detox or arrested, and for me, that was one of the most important things, was like to realize I don't know everything. I do, and surrender, like you say all the time, surrender. Yes. Surrendering doesn't make you weak, it makes you strong.
Right. Yeah.
And I didn't understand that.
Well, I think in general, like the world's perspective is, well, if you surrender, you're weak, right? So if I put it in very base terms, okay, there's two opposing sides. If one surrenders, what does that mean? Oh, they, forfeited, they're weak, whatever, and so on. And like in this context, surrender is actually a place of power, right? Because you're surrendering your will, and you're turning it over. Why? Because we've thoroughly, all of us, rehearsed the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different results. Clearly that does not work. So, it's just saying, hey, look, I give up, and then yielding yourself and being put in a position where somebody can lift you up on either side. Everybody needs to be carried, like I love that. You see it everywhere now, right? Like the footsteps prayer, right? The little footprints in the sand. It was like when I thought I was alone, those were the times that you carried me, right? God carries us through that whole experience, but he can't carry me unless I'm willing to be carried. It's just like a child, right? If I go to pick up a kid, he's kicking, screaming, whatever, I'm not carrying him anywhere, And we all do that too, I'm like, no, I'm not going, I'm not doing it, whatever, until we say, hey, I'm tired. I don't want to do this anymore. That's really the only time that things change.
And it's crazy, like for me, like I could always stop, I just couldn't stay stopped. That was like hard for me, because nobody ever explained it to me, like, yeah, Nicole, once it's out of your system, like you have a choice now.
Yeah.
And it sounds so stupid, me saying it, but it's the truth. Like I could stop for like a couple days, maybe a couple months, but like for me to stay stopped, that was the hard part. This is like a daily thing. And alcohol, I can't drink alcohol. And that was one thing with me. I was like, oh, I'm a drug addict, I'm not an alcoholic.
Listen, I did Dynamite, right, for a year. I was inpatient program. It was a great program. It was for like adolescents. And like they changed my whole perspective and like my whole mentality, and like I grew up there, But when I got out, I was almost like 2 years clean. I left the program, I split. And then I thought I could just drink. And 3 weeks later, not even, like 2 weeks later, I was already on another run, and I really thought like I would never do that again, and it's crazy. Like you just can't pick nothing up. Like that's how it's got to be. And it's not a miserable life. It really isn't,
No.
Like I have so much things coming like for me. Like I'm blessed. Like I have so many things happening in my life that's great today. Like, I'm really happy. Like, and even like my mother's proud of me and just like things like that like means a lot, And it's just like little blessings on blessings for me. Like, and I receive them on a daily basis, and it's great. Maybe not in the beginning. It's not great in the beginning because you're sick, you're miserable.
Yeah,
but
sure.
Eventually, like things start falling into place.
Yeah. I think that's all part of the whole trust the process thing, Talk about that a lot. It gets used. I still don't think it's overused because it really is true. Like, all right, so I'm not where I need to be today, but I'm further away from where I was, and as long as I keep moving forward, working my program, working on myself and everything else, that, bottom line is that I can have the best life that I ever imagined, You know, one of my favorite phrases, right? What do I say? It's about diamonds in disguise, right?
Yeah.
The lump of coal, right? The coal doesn't become a diamond by sticking it in the microwave. You know, it's under intense pressure, under a long period of time, but the end result is that it is beautiful, it is brilliant, you know what I mean? And that's what both of you are, and the people that we come into contact with on a daily basis. And I have to say, I'm very grateful to have had this conversation with each of you, and that we'll continue to have these conversations, and that hopefully other people will be willing to participate.
I just hope that if anything comes out of all of this today, it's that like people know that they don't have to stay stuck. They don't have to live miserable and be a slave to a drug, no matter what it is, if it's alcohol, if it's whatever it is. Like there is a way out and there is hope, and like there is a life beyond
Yeah, you
that.
could have a
Your
Yeah.
life isn't over when you stop. It's just beginning. And I couldn't understand that. Like I thought that, you know, I was thinking about like, oh, what happens when my kid gets married? I'm like not even engaged. Like I'm not gonna drink at the wedding. But that's, you know, they have a saying like, you know, addicts and alcoholics, you know, normal people daydream about castles in the sky. Like we rearrange the furniture because that's how we are. We overthink everything.
Right.
But like, I just want anybody to know like they don't have to die,
Yeah,
you know, because that's what happens. This is fatal.
that's it. Right? Either get clean or die, pretty much.
Or live the rest of
Jails,
your life
institutions, and
miserable.
death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Miserable.
Jails, institutions, and death. And there is, you know, there is a better life. And I didn't understand that either, you know? I just kept going back out. I had a little piece of it, and I would just go back out. And, like, now I'm grabbing onto it, you know? Because it is good.
Yeah, that's it, absolutely. So I appreciate both of you guys being here and being able, you know, to have the three of us talk like this. Thank you so much. I really love you. I really love you, and I appreciate you both.